I'm John Batchelor. We're headed to Florida. Mary Kissel.
We gonna dance, John?
Yes. No, Mary, we're going to talk.
We can't dance? I want to dance to this music.
This is Miami Vice. Mary is homesick momentarily. Her state, however, her dear Florida, the state she knows very well, is now at the center of the debate about the Republican Party's nomination for 2016. And can the Republicans dance? No, they can't. But they can give money, and they can talk. And right now, the talk and the money is about Jeb Bush, twice governor of Florida. And the other part of the conversation in Florida is about Marco Rubio, the first-term senator, who represents everything the Republican Party wants to be in the future, including not only the electoral votes of Florida, but including access to the growing Latino population in the country. Rick Outzen, who is our man in the Panhandle. Rick, a very good evening to you. Mary and I have... Off-air, we were having an argument about Marco Rubio.
A tiff.
Yeah, tiff. All right, fine. However, you know why we were arguing, because you've got two very attractive Republican candidates coming out of Florida. And first we want to know, because you live in the Panhandle and you have very good conversations with the Panhandle, and I depend upon the Panhandle for common sense, unlike the rest of glamorous Florida. What does the Panhandle make of Bush? What does the Panhandle make of Rubio? Can they both run together? Good evening to you.
Well, good evening. I think that Jeb Bush, the Panhandle of Florida, is Bush country. They liked his brother. They liked his father. They liked Jeb as governor. Rubio did well in the Senate race against Charlie Crist, but anybody would have done against Crist, I think, in the end. But this is Bush country here. But Rubio, like we were talking in the break, is very, very attractive candidate. A lot of young energy. He is a Republican version, not politically, but a Republican version of Barack Obama in 2008. First, Obama was a first-year senator. Was a minority. Had little experience in the executive side, but was very, very attractive and very politically savvy. Rubio is very, very similar, and you're right. Plugging into that Hispanic vote could be huge because so far no one's been able to do that well in the Republican Party like Rubio has.
Well, Jeb seems to understand the challenge. He's moving very, very quickly to lock up some big money donors. He was up here in New York, $100,000 a table, Rick. What's the urgency here?
Well, I think he has to try to control that middle. He has to knock out Christie. Scott Walker is a challenge for him. He's going to have to. He was able to get Mitt Romney out. So I think that if he can lock up some of the big money, it might frighten off some of the younger guys. But I'm not so sure. They don't seem. Hillary tried to do the same thing. I'm not sure it's going to work.
Rick, the Jeb Bush machine is already here in New York. They're everywhere. He's been here he's been here at least once, I know of.
Not just this week.
And he's talking to some very big names here, people who have a lot of influence. Not all Republicans either. They kind of go back and forth depending on the campaign. Marco Rubio, however, is glamorous, and we know about him, and we know he has a future in the party, and we know he's extremely successful in speaking in Washington. He's listened to because of his Hispanic connections. How is it in Florida? Is he well regarded in Florida? Is he regarded as a success that Florida is proud of, or do they wonder why everybody makes so much of him up in Washington and New York?
I think he's a superstar in the state. I think that he's definitely got the attention of the state when he was House Speaker. He was able to parlay that into a Senate seat. There's just not as much depth to him politically as you have with Jeb. I mean, Jeb has a track record taking on very tough issues and standing up and really reaching out across the lines, because back then it wasn't as dominated as much by Republicans as it is now. He had to work with the other party. So he has a better track record politically, but that also can work against you in a campaign like this.
Well, Jeb looks very flat. He looks tired. He looks a little older. He can't really read off the teleprompter too well. Rubio gives these wonderful speeches off the cuff. He's Well, he's wonderful, John. You're nodding.
Well,
You agree with me?
Mary and I are wandering around an issue we were ready to talk about. Rubio, Cruz, Walker, and certainly what you'd have to look at, Rand Paul. This is your generation, Mary. This is the Gen Xers.
Please don't put Cruz in my generation.
They're ready for
John.
the center stage. And Jeb Bush, though he's the younger brother, is a boomer. Rick, I appeal to you. Help me here. I don't want to say we're old, Rick, but there is a new generation, and it's time for them to push away some of our slower members and speak out. Do you understand, Rick?
No, I agree. The challenge, though, John, is that the Republican Party has never really done that. It's always, whose turn is it? It was McCain's turn.
Right.
Last couple decades ago, it was Bob Dole's turn. George W. Bush sort of broke that. He really wasn't his turn, and he broke through and won the nomination. But Mitt Romney was that kind of candidate.
Boomer, Romney, McCain is lost generation, quiet generation, and Boomer, Bush, and greatest generation, Dole, and before that, all of that. Now, this is the first time Gen Xers have been at this level.
Well, yes, right. Hooray, Gen X. I'm all for Gen X.
No, Mary, I like the fact that they have young families. I like the fact that they represent a big part of America's future, that this is where the burden of debt is going to land on them and their children. And Jeb Bush, he has lots of attributes that are successful, right, but let's see how he does up against the younger ones. That's why I like Rubio. And I like Walker and Paul the same way. I want to see how they perform on stage.
I'm not a Paul fan.
Well, I think that's going to be the problem. That will be what we need to see. We know that personality drives elections, particularly presidential elections. Can they get through the debate cycle without stumbling, putting their foot in their mouth, grabbing a water bottle, without any snafu? If they can do that, and Jeb continues to look tired, this could be the time.
Mary, about Jeb Bush, he was your governor, and you know him very well. I saw it around the edges because we were dealing with the other governor who became president of the United States. Does he still enjoy a good reputation in Florida?
Yes.
Jeb Bush.
Yes. I think he'll have to answer questions about his money-making activities after he left political office, because he made a concerted decision after he left that he was going to go make money for his family. That's all fine and good, but those activities will be disclosed and probed and questioned, and that's something that he'll have to talk about. But there's no question that he was a very successful governor. He reformed a lot of things. Florida's got a great education system. It's attracting a lot of investment and a lot of people, in large part because of the reforms that Bush put in place. That's all to the good, and there's nothing wrong with having two good candidates come out of the same state. It's striking. It's a great state. It's striking. And what's the downside of this, Rick? Don't you enjoy the attention?
Well, we do. I enjoy being on this show, but I think the other piece is it's going to eat up a ton of campaign money. Anyone else seeking office next year, they're going to have a hard time raising the money because Rubio and Bush, or even just one of them stays in the race, they're going to suck up a ton of money out of this state, and that's got a lot of incumbents that are up for re-election a little bit worried about where they're going to get their money from.
Mary, one last thought about Jeb Bush. Because he's boasted, wrong word, because he has predicted that he will raise a great deal of money. Is that the end of the story, Mary? I don't think so. This is the early stages of a very, very, very competitive race for the nomination. And Rick, do you go along with that? This isn't a money primary. Even if he collects all that money, that doesn't determine it for him.
No, because there's still a lot of money that's going to stay on the sidelines for a while, I think. I think you're going to see they're going to wait and let some of the early primaries decide this. But I think the energy level is going to be interesting, and can the young guys, the Gen Xers, get through this process without imploding? Rick
Outzen is the Pensacola Independent News publisher as well as the owner. He's in the Panhandle, the Common Sense of Florida. Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and the host of Opinion Journal. I'm John Batchelor.